Hi, Christina.
Hi.
How are you this fine day?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Oh, we're hanging in there.
Great. Love that. So I've got a watering hole for you.
I would love to learn some things.
Great. So let's just ignore the small orange man that's right next to the tablet, but it's fine.
He's really trying to be involved right now.
He certainly is.
And I just hope he doesn't cause a ruckus later. Knock on wood. That it stays that way.
We'll figure it out. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It'll be great. Let's learn some things about food and beverage. Is this month's category, right?
Yeah.
Yay.
We decided for the seasons that we're gonna pick a thing that is gonna be centered around.
Yes.
So the topic for this month is going to be food and beverage. I picked beverage. I don't know which one you picked, but I hope it was
Not beverage.
one of those at the very least.
Okay. I was like, was I supposed to? Okay.
Great.
Learn.
So I picked artificial sweeteners, and why are they demonized? Because so many people are out there just like, oh, it's that fake sugar shit. And there's so much more to that.
Half the population is that way, and the other half is the ones that are like smuggling the packets out of the IHOP. You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, there's only two kinds of people in the world.
Right. And I refuse to be either one of those.
Well, I'll smuggle enough out of the IHOP for both of us.
Fair. All right. So, let's get started.
Yes.
We're going to do just like a little history lesson first. Very first sweetness that most regions could rely on was, what do you think?
Honey.
Yeah, it's going to be honey.
If it wasn't honey, I would have flipped my desk. Electronics be damned.
So, honey's the first guy that came on the scene. Everybody loves honey. He's the best. There were also local fruits and everything. You know, you got your apples, you got your dates, you got your berries, yada, yada. But sugar itself was actually first cultivated by New Guinea. They were chewing on the sugar canes. Is that him?
What? The breathing? Yeah, I think that's
okay.
him. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I just thought, am I stupid? Am I making this up? Is this a thing? Am I losing it?
See, you're over here losing it over his voice, and I was going to look at you and go, New Guinea as in Papa?
As in around India.
Yeah. Great.
So, the main sweetener, of course, is honey in most regions, including Europe. Yeah. Alexander the Great did visit India in 326 BCE, and that's, he was introduced to sugarcane there. And once he got a hold of it, it kind of spread like wildfire. He took it back. Most places, he was going back and forth and trying to show it off to the best of his ability to say, look at what we can do. Look at what we have. It's this new sweetened thing that can make your life better. So it spread around. The Romans found themselves with sugar eventually, but before then, they actually loved this other thing called sapa. It's one of the first alternate sweeteners that I could find with a wild story, I gotta tell you. Basically what they would do is since all they really had was like fruit, all their sweetness came from like dates and grapes and stuff like that. They boiled off the unfermented grape liquid from their winemaking process, and that created the sweet substance called sapa. It's syrup. It's syrup. That's what it is.
Okay.
So they were really excited about this because they could add it to pretty much anything, and it would make it immediately sweeter. There was no actual sugar added to this. It was just like the concentrated sugars that were from the grapes themselves. And to get the purest quality that they could, they would slow boil the sapa for long periods of time, which is great unless your vessels are made of lead.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So lead leached into the liquid and the syrup, and it caused it to react with the acetate ions in the grape juice, which gave them lead acetate, or sugar of lead. That's what it was called later. Yeah. It's actually a salt, but it contains a sweet flavor. But it's still fucking lead, so, it lead poisoning.
You want some salty lead that's actually sweet? Because I have a product for you.
Ooh, boy.
It's from grapes.
Yup. So they weren't really noticing the poisoning part, but they did notice that the sweetest products that they were getting were coming from the use of lead pots. So they were like, oh, good, let's make more lead pots. And they went with like a pure lead pot to get that good. So it was literally the worst thing they could have done.
Like, I know I like to joke that my vintage dishes probably have lead in them, and that I love me a little bit of lead in my water, and all that. Like, I know it's a joke that I make.
Yeah.
But lead poisoning's like a actual real big situation that is still happening in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, lead paint's big.
Yeah.
And
all Gen X and that damn lead paint stare, like, that's a whole other thing. I just, oh my God, I can't. Sugar's addicting, I get it.
But there's gotta be
a better way than all this lead.
Right.
Where did they even get lead? Like, that's a whole other conversation.
So once they got to the point where they were like, this is the best stuff, they wanted everyone to have it, and they wanted it to be convenient, so they innovated the product to make it crystallized, and that was a huge influential ingredient in their meals. So it was everywhere. And they finally started noticing that there was an issue. Like, usual lead poisoning symptoms would be eventually reported, and that's when they were like, oh, there's a problem. Whether they did anything about it or not, probably not. The Roman Empire did fall.
I was gonna say, it's amazing that we fucking made it here today as a people.
Yeah, like, a lot of people truly believe that the culprits of the decline, at the very least, if not the actual fall of the Roman Empire, was lead. Because it was everywhere. They used it for everything, not just this. It was in their cutlery. It was in their aqueducts for their piping systems that they had. It was everywhere. They loved lead, which super sucks, because when you have, hearing loss, cognitive difficulties, fatigue, dementia, infertility, complete organ shutdown, it makes it hard to survive.
Yike.
So, that was an alternative to sugar. I'm going to talk about sugar just a little bit, not a lot.
Like white table sugar from sugarcane sugar?
Right. Yes, that sugar. Because this episode's supposed to be not about sugar, but here's a few things just to keep in mind. Sugar was actually considered a fine spice from the moment Alexander the Great saw it until about the year 1500, when technological improvements and more sources of the actual sugarcane make it cheaper to produce.
Thank fuck, because it is not a spice. Like, I will die on this hill right now. Sugar is not a spice.
Sure, now. But at the time that it was discovered, it was considered a spice because it made your food taste different.
I will also die on this hill because sugar is not a spice because white people like it. White people raided the world for spices and hated them all. But they liked sugar. Sugar is not a spice.
You're not wrong. So clearly we've already established that the Romans had a dangerous alternative to sugar on their hands. But once they got the real thing, surprisingly, they hardly used it in their food. They actually used it medicinally instead.
I knew it was coming.
Uh-huh.
I knew it was coming.
Yep. And quite a few regions actually did that. Some of them were purely like, oh, this tastes good. We like it. Put it in food. But quite a few of them were like, this is medicine. This is precious. This is not to be tasty. It's supposed to be something that makes you feel better. Which, yes, but also differently.
A spoonful of sugar is the medicine.
It truly is.
Go down. Words in the song. Go on.
And I could go into every single region, but we would never leave. And then I would just live here, and Garfield would eat my face.
Correct.
We don't need that. So, regarding how sugar actually works in the body, it's quick energy. It's literally our primary source of fuel is glucose, and that's a sugar,
Yes.
and they're a sugar energy source. And to refill that glucose, it's sugar. Oh, he is being cute.
Oh, he's being so cute. Let me just snap a little picture for the Instagram.
Don't mind us.
Don't mind if I do. Sorry.
No.
Sorry, you're talking about really important things over here.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I get it.
What is this? What is the lead sugar syrup called?
It's called, they call it sugar of lead, but it's actually lead acetate.
Acetate.
Yep.
Don't they? Are there? That's all. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay, cool. So, like I said, with sugar, glucose is the big, quick energy that we, human bodies want.
Yes.
When we taste something sweet, our bodies naturally flood our brains with dopamine just to encourage us to have more sugar because that's what the body wants. That makes you feel real, real great. Dopamine's a good drug to be having in your body, pulsing through. It's good stuff. Lots of foods that are naturally good for you, like they have a lot of vitamins and minerals and everything naturally, they tend to have natural sugars to go along with the fiber that's also good for you and is, all in one neat package. So that's cherry on top. That tends to make you want to have sugar.
Right.
Not great things about sugar, though. If your blood sugar gets to be too much, your triglycerides increase, and so does your risk for heart disease. Not great.
Not great at all.
Too much sugar is excess calories. Excess calories make you fat, and fat itself isn't always bad, but too much fat in your body can be detrimental to your health in a variety of ways, which is also not great. Sugar also promotes tooth decay, which isn't it. We don't love that.
Well, yeah, your bones don't like sugar.
No, not at all. So, sugar is great, but it's also not everything. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
As always,
Right.
with everything.
Yeah. So, now that we know a little bit about sugar, just to set the baseline.
Yes.
Artificial sweeteners. They're created in lab settings. You've got aspartame, you got saccharin, you got sucralose. There's a bunch of others that exist. Those are the main ones that people know about generally. Sugar alcohols are carbs that are resistant to digestion. They're not 0 calorie, but they are low calorie. You got your xylitols, your erythritol, your sorbitols,
Yes.
all the tols.
Which is wild, because xylitol is good for your teeth.
Generally, yes.
More than any of the other ones that I know of, at least.
Right.
Which is like, just
Everything has a place.
science is wild.
It is. Then you have your natural sweeteners. That's going to be your molecules that are extracted from plants like monk fruit, stevia. There's also allulose, which is it's chemically similar to fructose, which is the sugar you're going to find in fruit.
Yeah.
You're going to find that in fruit juices too, some vegetables, and honey. Too much fructose is actually going to make you feel sick, though.
Right.
Our bodies aren't great at digesting that, especially if there is a lack of fiber. And allulose is a sugar found specifically in figs and raisins. That is also hard to digest, and it's about 70% sweeter than table sugar.
Wait. It's in raisins, but it's not in grapes?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I think it's chemically it's changed once it's dried out a little bit. So it's just a different kind.
This makes sense. Go on.
So, now that we've established roughly what everything kind of category everything falls into, let's talk about the first diet soda. It was called No Cow.
Please tell me it's clear.
I don't actually know. Probably.
Okay.
I didn't look up what it looks like.
Okay.
I do know that it was used in medicinal facilities, and it was mostly to help with diabetes patients in 52. Mm-hmm. It was made with sodium cyclamate and saccharin, and we'll get into what those are in a bit. This was actually 6 years before the FDA passed the Food Additives Act. And that essentially said you are putting chemicals into products that the American people are putting into their bodies.
Right.
We would like to test those chemicals to make sure that they are not hurting the people. And that's all that Food Additive Act was.
Right.
And so that was one of those things that, like, it existed before we had regulation, which is unfortunate for anyone that was there for those 6 years and consuming that product.
Right.
Saccharin was banned in 81. That led to aspartame being pushed in Diet Coke in 82. And cyclamate is currently banned in the US, but not in Europe. And saccharin itself is banned in Europe, but not in the US. And you want to know why?
I sure do.
Politics.
Of course.
That's it. It's
who
really...
Who's saccharin paying versus who is the other dude paying, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit more about what saccharin is, what cyclamate is, who all of these chemicals are, really.
Great.
Saccharin is, right now, it's sweet and low. I said that it was banned. Now it's not. Surprise.
Okay.
Because politics. But it is now currently sweet and low. It was discovered. It was the first alternate sugar that was discovered. It was discovered in 1878 by Professor Ira Remsen at Johns Hopkins University Lab. Actually, it kind of was and it kind of wasn't. He laid the groundwork.
Okay.
But he didn't actually have his aha moment. Like, it was somebody else that did that.
Naturally.
But this guy, Remsen, he was working on additional uses for coal tar derivatives, which is a byproduct of coal production.
Okay.
It's got sulfam benzoic acids. He published like 75 papers on the subject matter, and he like paved the way for benzoic sulfonide or saccharin to be created.
Okay.
So
we fucking found sugar because people were fucking around with coal?
No, we found sugar because people were chewing on sugarcane reeds.
No.
Long time ago, galaxy far, far
Not
away.
that.
We
Sweet
found
and low.
Yes, we found
That
sweet and low, or saccharin, because they were actually trying to find something to use with the coal derivatives.
Okay. Doesn't work with the coal. Let's eat it.
Right. So then came along a Russian chemist by the name of Konstantin Fallberg.
What a name.
In 1877, he was hired by H.W. Perot firm. It was an import company in Baltimore, specifically a sugar import company. They wanted to hire Fallberg to inspect a sugar shipment that the U.S. government snatched up, and it was due to questions of the purity of that sugar.
Right.
So they also hired Remsen to run Fallberg's test through the lab that he had. So after Fallberg was done with this analysis, he was literally just waiting to testify. So he had nothing to do. He got permission from Remsen to use the lab for his own personal research, and that kind of gave him a little in to the Institute's research, which is all of that coal derivative stuff. So here's a story that's been told to death. I'm sure you've heard it, and if you haven't, now you're going to. June of 1878, after working in the lab, Fallberg, he sat to eat dinner, forgetting to wash his hands after he was done working. He bit into a roll, which was far too sweet. Like, it really should not have been that sweet. He asked his wife up and down if she put anything in or on the roll that she normally doesn't. She said no, absolutely not. He went right back into the lab. He tasted everything that he was working with, which is super funny to imagine. Could you imagine? You walk in, you find him licking a beaker, and then the very top of his desk, and you're like, "What are you doing, buddy?" And he's like, "Out, simpleton. I'm busy discovering a new chemical," or whatever.
Whatever scientists do in their free time.
Right.
Wash your fucking hands if you're a chemist. What the hell?
That's what I'm thinking. You're going to find that this is a theme.
Of course it is.
Anyway, He eventually figured out what thing was sweet. It was an overboiled beaker filled with O-sulfuric benzoic acid, which had reacted with phosphorus chloride and ammonia, which made benzoic sulfamide, which is saccharin. Months later, both Thalberg and Remsen published a paper which laid out 2 methods of saccharin synthesis, and they both noted that this compound was much sweeter than cane sugar, but they really didn't have any intention for commercial uses yet, because, greedy men do the greedy thing.
Yep.
1884, Thalberg had already left Remsen's lab, didn't tell him what he was about to do, and he applied for German and American patents with methods producing saccharin more cheaply and in larger quantities. He claimed to be the sole discoverer, which was a dick move, in which he called Thalberg's saccharin. Thalberg set up shop in New York, got to work, and this product came in pill and powder form. It became very popular very quickly. Doctors would prescribe it to treat nausea and headaches. It was used as a preservative in canneries. And something more common for us to see is diabetics would use it to sweeten their tea or their coffee or whatever.
When was this?
This was the turn of the century, essentially.
Really?
Yeah.
And when was saccharin? Saccharin was banned during the 50s after the war, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm doing that stupid Quantum Leap thing again where I'm relating shit you're talking about back to an episode of Quantum Leap. Sorry. I was trying to put the timeline together in my brain.
Okay, gotcha.
That's all.
All good. Now, as this chemical grew in popularity, its safety was starting to be questioned, and it was thanks to Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle. I don't know if you've heard about that book. Okay, it was big. When it came out, it was huge, because it was basically saying, capitalism, that thing that we love, it's kind of trash, and it kind of gave you a reason to question everything about capitalistic society and what they do that you don't know about.
Right.
So people were starting to question saccharin and its safety. They didn't love that it was lab-made instead of natural, like sugar or honey.
Right.
So food inspections were insisted on. Thalberg had tried the substance himself to try and prove that it was safe. He had 10 grams, and after 24 hours showed no negative side effects to prove its safety, but that wasn't enough for the people. They didn't care. By 1906, Congress passed the Pure Food and Drug Act, which was the first attempt to regulate America's food supply. By 1907, saccharin was commonly used in sodas and canned goods, and in true American fashion, the people had no idea what was in their food. He adjusted. Just in case you were curious what that noise was. In the middle of tons of food and drug reforms, the head of the chemical division of the United States Department of Agriculture, Harvey Wiley, he describes saccharin as a coal tar product totally devoid of food value and extremely hazardous to health.
Yikes.
He recommended saccharin for possibly being toxic to get banned.
Okay.
So he was pushing that. He ended up getting nowhere because the biggest of the bigs got in his way. President Teddy Roosevelt was asked about the safety of saccharin in 1908, and he had feelings.
This man, I can either control the fate of our country or I can control my daughter. I can't do both. We're asking this motherfucker about sugar alternatives? Okay.
Yep. Roosevelt's doctor recommended a sugar-free diet.
Of course he did.
And he had been using saccharin as a substitute. So Roosevelt responded to Wiley's claim with, quote, "Anybody who says saccharin is injurious to health is an idiot," end quote. However, in 1912, the use of saccharin was eventually banned, at least in the manufacture of processed foods.
Okay.
So not just straight up. Thalberg decided, I'm just going to sell it outside of the food and drink. It was still super easily accessible to the people, really. You just had to go to, like, medicinal facilities instead, or you had to go to the pharmacy or whatever.
Right.
So he was like, I'm good, everything's fine, and then he was real good.
He was
Because World War One popped up.
Yep.
And there was a sugar shortage.
Yep.
And all of the sugar had to go straight to the troops. Which means you would see, like now you can look up pictures of soldiers in the field and they're drinking Coca-Cola, they're drinking Hershey's, and it's because they set up deals with the military so that only Coca-Cola was powering the soldiers, only Hershey's was fueling your troops. That was what was important, is giving the troops the sugar to make sure that you're free.
That shit's still fueling the troops, man.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Just with taurine now and fucking
Shit.
what aspartame and oh god. Okay, keep going.
So, the sugar couldn't be used for the American people back home. And it was thought that at the time that if you had children, they needed sugar to grow properly. They didn't know any better, clearly.
Clearly.
But that was what was told to the wives that were left back home, that you absolutely had to do that. So they were like, what am I going to do in a fucking sugar shortage? So they went straight to saccharin. They knew it was going to do the same thing, and they were like, that's going to have to be good enough, because that's what I can get my hands on right now.
And those are the soldiers that fought in World War II.
Yeah. World War I, World War II, it was all heading that direction. World War II, everything was a little more pointed, where they were like, pushed. You gotta go get the saccharin. Go get the saccharin, ladies. Like, that was just what it was at the time. So, saccharin does come with a little bit of a bitter aftertaste. So now it's often mixed with other sweeteners to minimize that bitterness, but at the time they didn't have anything else, so you just kind of had a little bit of bitterness, but you got your sweetness as well. So it was like a double-edged sword.
Bitter, so close enough, I guess.
Right. It kind of hid with it, I suppose.
Bitter oatmeal. What? I don't know. What the fuck were they eating during World War One?
Gruel.
Yeah, have some bitter gruel.
Okay, so we're done with talking about saccharin for a second.
Yes.
Because now we got to move on to cyclamate.
Great.
1937, you got the new thing going on over at the University of Illinois. A grad student was working on a fever-reducing drug. Tasted something sweet on his finger, of course, while on a smoke break. He was tasting cyclamate. It's a chemical that is 30 to 50 times sweeter than sugar, and it was the original sweet and low. Then the 50s came along. The need for waistlines to be slim and trim were in super high demand. So saccharin and cyclamate was the way to get there with your sodas. Or at least that's how it was marketed. It was advertised that way a lot. And by 63, America had fallen head over heels for cyclamate. The sweetener that had 0 calories cost a tenth of the price of sugar. And by 68, Americans were consuming more than 17 million pounds of cyclamate each year.
Jiminy Christ.
That's what I'm saying. But the brakes got pushed because in 69, cyclamate was proven to cause bladder cancer in rats. However, we have science here to tell us if that's right or not. And it's kind of right, but kind of not. Like, it's technically correct, but it doesn't apply to humans as easily. The bladder cancer that was developed in rats was due to dosage. Compared to how it would be for humans, it'd be like if a human ingested 550 cans of diet soda per day.
Holy fuck.
That's what I'm saying. So that is...
I mean, I give Mountain Dew a run for my money in my heyday, but, like, not quite that much. Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's not really feasible for someone to actually do that and get bladder cancer from cyclamate. It doesn't make sense for you to actually...
Yeah, where would it...
It's not applicable.
Where do you put it all?
So the FDA, without that information, they put a ban on cyclamate because of the essentially false information that couldn't be proven false at the time. And the ban is still in effect today. No one went back to fix it. So that's not sweet and low anymore. Saccharin became the new sweet and low. And then another study in 70 showed evidence of saccharin also causing bladder cancer in rats, which led to a ban of Roosevelt's favorite sugar substitute in 77.
And that concludes part 1 of our look into the demonization of artificial sugars. Tune in next week for part 2.